With engines, there was an epic of its own. At first, the most popular was not the young diesel Turbo 4 of the 224 DT series. It has a belt drive of the gas distribution mechanism, which has a service life of 120,000 kilometers. In addition to the belt itself, it is recommended to update the rollers. Well, such reinsurance is quite justified for the pump, because this engine can easily take care of 1/3 kilometers. The list of weak points will be quite short. First of all, the mechanism changes the geometry of the turbine, due to which it is necessary to change the entire turbocharger, but the initially unsuccessful intercooler pipes were replaced with a reinforced version. In addition, the rear crankshaft oil seal was also revised and a more durable version was introduced there. The older the crossover becomes, the more lubricant leaks from different places may occur. To replace the most insidious ones, dismantling the subframe and transmission is required. So if you want to clean it, then change all the gaskets once. This is the seal of the crankshaft support near the oil seal. This is the external oil seal of the angular gear coupling, as well as the joints of the pan extension with both the cylinder block and the pan itself. The sealant is drying out there because replacement requires dismantling the subframe. Since August 2016, the crossover began to be equipped with engines of its own production. The well-deserved diesel engine was replaced by a downsiding Turbo 4 from the new 2-liter Ingenuum family, and nothing good happened. Warranty replacements and serious repairs of these engines happened with scanty mileage of 20,000 kilometers. So engineers from the first years of production are considered a dubious acquisition, but in fairness, we note that over the years, childhood illnesses have become significantly less. Here is visual evidence. The most common ailment of this family at first was prematurely worn-out needle bearings of balancer shafts. As a rule, worn balancers were replaced under warranty upon treatment. Since 2017, stronger bearings have already been installed on these motors. In general, the pre-restyling Discovery Sport older than 2019 is considered the most problematic. My head is spinning from the list of incidents they have identified. Rotation of the crankshaft liners, violation of the geometry of the cylinder head, and such breakdowns happened more than once. And the turbo engine loves fresh oil so much that the interval between service visits sometimes has to be reduced to 7,000 kilometers. The fact is that the engine control program too often activates the particulate filter regeneration mode, as a result of which the lubricant can dilute, and then such breakdowns as rotated liners or collapsed turbochargers become quite logical. 2-liter gasoline crossovers account for only 1/5 of the ads, but we will also discuss this option, this brainchild of the Ford company, the key problem of which was the fixing pins on the clutches of the intake phase shifters. A damaged key usually led to the death of the chain guides, and, a little less often, to the breakage of the chain drive itself. Well, in the most unpleasant case, it could end with the valves bending. In 2016, the mechanism was improved and the issue was resolved. But another disease called destruction of the exhaust manifold remained in the 2-layer manifold, which turned out to be welded from various materials on a steel base. Often the weld seam bursts, as a result of which the manifold begins to poison the exhaust outward, resulting in an extraneous unpleasant odor. Turbine spin-up or even the death of the Bork-Warner turbocharger. In this case, the only optimal solution is to install a non-factory non-original manifold, which is already made from heat-resistant cast iron. It's a pity that they couldn't come up with a similar recipe for the crankshaft rear oil seal. The seal begins to leak lubricant, but almost immediately after the odometer exceeds the first 100,000 kilometers, it is clear that the part itself is inexpensive. But the bill from the workshop for replacing it will be large. The uncontested 9-speed automatic ZF9 HP48 turned out to be quite problematic European. The engineers designing the electronic hydraulic and cooling systems made many miscalculations, and due to malfunctions of the control unit and simply poor contact crimping, the electronics activated emergency mode, after which the car literally stopped. In addition, why did the authors of this 9-speed system decide to abandon a full-fledged cooling radiator and limit themselves to only a tiny heat exchanger? As a result, the liquid oil poured inside this unit degrades early. Due to these features, the transmission fluid has to be changed already at 40,000 miles. The presence of a large abrasive is a definite reason to go through the 9-speed gearbox, even if the gear shifts flawlessly. In the vast majority of Land Rovers, the all-wheel drive system is built around the 5th-generation Haldex clutch. Perhaps everything is known about this unit, but on the Discovery Sport, the multi-disc mechanism, well known to mechanics, suddenly decided to throw out the cranks at record low mileages. So, already at 30,000 kilometers, the effect of biting the rear axle in the form of a series of light jolts may occur. This is due to the design of the clutch itself, in which the oil quickly becomes clogged with friction wear products. It can be easily treated by replacing the transmission fluid and cleaning the filter mesh. By the way, for the 5-seater version of the Discovery Sport, an advanced transmission called Active Drive Line was also offered, which was developed by specialists from the famous company GKN. Its rear differential is supplemented with 2 packages of electronically controlled clutches for each of the axle shafts. This is very difficult, but at the same time, it is a very sensible system. It is important to remember here that different fluids are provided for the gearbox and control parts. The chassis, unlike that on restyled examples, deserves praise except that the mounting of the anti-roll bars begin to creak after 60 to 70,000 kilometers. In fact, this Land Rover is a relatively successful recent model. For a long time it has accounted for a quarter of all sales of the British brand. I wish the new engines of the Ingenium series would be less capricious. Well, I would like to wish the 9-speed automatic transmission more resource. However, in the updated model of cars, all of the above disadvantages were practically eliminated. Therefore, if you take the Discovery Sport, then it's probably better to either have a completely fresh copy like ours or a version with an old diesel engine.